All righty, welcome everybody to Satsang on this beautiful, beautiful Sunday. I am not in Seattle today. I'm actually in Las Vegas. I did a couple of events, a meet, greet, and meditate, and also an EFT workshop. So by all means, as always, please, as you join in, please let me know where you are, who you are, and whether or not you can hear me, which is extremely important because I'm not all that much to look at. So I'm just going to be setting myself up here so that I can receive your chatting, so I can answer questions and the like. And we are actually, I do have a live audience with me here today. A few people have come to join in with me live. So let me make sure I can see all of the chats. So please, by all means, say hello. Hi from Adelaide, which is Sally. Hey, Sally. The sound is good. Excellent, excellent. I can't always tell, and I've had a couple of problems with it recently. So very, very good. Very, very good. Who else? What else we got here? We got a couple of Las Vegas residents sitting in the room here with me. So be more vocal. By this time, I usually have a bunch of people telling me where they're from. So maybe it's a little slow start today. So as people are coming to join, I'm thinking, as always, as I wait for the questions to come in. Oh, hi from Belgium. Hello. Hi from Poland. Eva's here. Hello. Wonderful. We have Ivailo from Bulgaria. What a great crowd. As always with satsang, there's a lot of different flavors of satsang. Remember, the word in Sanskrit simply means communion with truth. And it takes the form, it's traditionally taken the form in India, where it originated, of simply a dialogue between a teacher and a student. It's unrehearsed, it is unplanned, it is all spontaneous. But the point of it isn't to acquire spiritual knowledge. It isn't to have a spiritual experience, because even the most wonderful spiritual experiences will eventually fade. The special effects of awakening are not the awakening. We've all heard a lot of stories of dramatic stories about people having their extraordinary experiences of awakening and feeling one with everything and leaving their bodies and all sorts of things, and not to discount any of that, but the cause of those things is the real root of it. And what I found is that many people have experienced more awakening than they realize, but have mistook it simply because it was so ordinary. It was just an everyday thing. It was just an insight that just caused some internal shift or shift of perception to take place that had gradually over time, the effect of it became evident. It's kind of like a trajectory, if there's an object in space heading in a direction, it's just going to keep heading in that direction until something knocks it off course. And it could be very slight. It could be just a little piece of space dust, and it can make a tiny little change in the trajectory, but over millions or tens or hundreds of millions of miles, you're off in a completely different direction, because it compounds over time. So even a tiny little insight, even the slightest little insight, if you give it an opportunity to grow, will in fact push your ship off to a completely different location. Awakening is often like that. It is not always, actually not usually, the great, the Buddha experience that people hear about. It is subtle, it is ordinary, it is everyday. It is simply every time you're in a circumstance, in a situation or circumstances, something's going on, and you just surrender to the moment and allow it to be as it is, you have experienced the awakening. It is that simple. Because when you just allow things to be as they are, you are stepping out of the egoic mind, which can never do that, by the way. So anytime you feel resistance, you know you are identified with the ego. Here's my other satsang resident is a little dog who only has one ear that goes up. Whenever you are able and willing to simply let things be as they are, you are actually stepping into a completely different relationship with everything. It's not easy, right? Because we've got a vested interest in the way we want things to go. And oftentimes we have to kind of be brought to our knees, and we just don't have any moves left in order to be able to make that step to simply just allow it to be as it is. But in that moment, something very powerful has happened. You have literally stepped out of the conditioning, you've stepped out of all the patterns, you've stepped out of your history, you've stepped out of memory, and you are simply present here and now. And that is it. Anything beyond that is wonderful, it's great, it's a great experience, it could be a light show, but that's not it. I like to use the metaphor of the boat and its wake. Nobody gets into the boat to make a wake. You get in the boat to go somewhere. As a matter of fact, if you focus your attention on the wake, you're probably going to run into something because you're not paying any attention to where you're actually going. All of the special effects and the stuff that happens as a result of awakening are not the awakening. They're simply the repercussions of it. They're the system adjusting to it. Yes, there can be an enormous emotional release when you suddenly let go. And all of a sudden everything begins to flow for you. And it will feel blissful, right? But that feeling will pass. But the capacity and the willingness and eventually the establishment in the state of letting go will become permanent. The experiences, they will always come and go. There's nothing stable about them. But the experiencer, the essential state of heart and mind that allows that to happen doesn't come and go. And that's the real meat that we're after here. That's what satsang is about. I'm not here to give you spiritual experiences. I'm not here to give you anything, except I'm actually here to take away everything you've got. So, let's see. Bulgaria. There's Brian in Virginia, Norfolk, Virginia. Hi, Brian. Good to see you. Brian's an old friend of mine. Sean from Melbourne, Australia. We got Emiliano from Sweden. We've got Patang from Israel. Son Apollo is here from London. Hello. We have Luca from Slovenia. Wow, the people outside of the U.S. are far outnumbering those that are in the U.S. This week. This is great. This is great. It's funny. I have more people here from Slovenia than I do from like Boise or Omaha. Not a surprise, actually. Okay, so let's see. Speaking Truths says, "Hello, GP. Can you talk about a person being unconscious and not fully conscious about I'm going to have to get my glasses. What they're doing? Is it true that an outside force can take control of you if you're not fully conscious? Well, if you're not fully conscious, you're already controlled by outside forces. If you think it's some kind of esoteric thing, some kind of being or demon or something, don't go there. It's a waste of time. When you're not conscious, you're controlled by your conditioning. You're little more than your conditioning. You have become the robot. And all of that's external. Yes, it feels very intimate because it's running through your own body and it's the reactions that you're experiencing as your body. But it has been imposed upon you. It has been laid on you. You've been trained into it. It is an external force. So to the degree that you are not unconscious, and simply, I don't mean unconscious, passed out drunk or on an operating table. I mean simply not conscious of who you are. Simply agreeing with the patterns of behavior and habits that make up the normal life of the human being. In other words, if you are identified with your conditioning, you are not conscious. You're not there. You are acting out that which is not you. So to become conscious, we have to become free of conditioning. Which glasses do I have here? Oh, thank you. thank you. The print on my phone is quite little. Uh-oh, what happened? Where'd it go? Go back to the chat. Oh, there it is. So I'm also sensing in you, like, I'm not really fully awake. Things are going to control me. Nothing can control you without your permission, right? The best salesman in the world can't sell you if you don't buy. So the belief that things control me are the only thing that controls you. There are no external forces that are working on you. There are no demons. There are no black magicians, people who claim to be, but they always have to feed off of your own gullibility. You have to believe it. The devil has no power. It's just a really persuasive, seductive little mofo. Right? You have to give your power away because you're the only one that has it. And that's a very empowering thing to recognize. Yet we do get seduced all the time into giving our power away to all sorts of different things. Culturally and economically, we also give our power away to every belief we have that something outside of my own consciousness is creating my world. To whatever that is, I have given away my power. It isn't. The only thing you ever experience is your own beliefs about it. There isn't anything else. And if you look really carefully, that becomes really self-evident. Please don't take anything I say in as some new theology you have to believe, because it'll fall on its face. It'll disappoint you. Look for yourself. Do you ever experience anything outside of your beliefs? When you experience anything in the world, what's the first thing you do? You start to interpret it from the point of view of what you already know. And so in that moment, the experience, which can be absolutely brand spanking new, your mind automatically goes into a mode where it's trying to, okay, what is that and this? Oh, this, like imagine you're walking through a park. Forgive me if you've heard me use this metaphor before, but you're walking through a park and it's springtime, and your eye gets caught by this most magnificent flower that you've never seen before, and it's enough of a surprise that it just stops you in your tracks, and for a moment there's just this pure silence inside of you, pure appreciation, pure love. It's just you're totally present in that moment. Well, in a very short time, maybe milliseconds, your mind goes, oh, wow, what a beautiful flower. Man, God, I like that flower. I've never seen it. I wonder what kind of flower that is. I think it's kind of like I think they have those on sale at Whole Foods. Before you're not there anymore. Right? You have disappeared. And in that moment, the flower isn't there anymore. You are now looking at the YouTube video of the flower. You're not actually there or present, because you've gone into your mind to describe it. Now remember, that's all your mind is. That's all it does. It compares, it contrasts, it describes, it remembers, it anticipates. That's its job, and it does it really, really well. But when you're having a moment of pure experience of the reality of existence in all of its beauty, the mind is quite useless. Who cares what it's called? A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Who cares what genus it is? Right? I don't experience a genus. I experience a flower. And so that's the point of all of this. And I can't quite remember what your question was because they've scrolled so many beyond it now. Let's see. So, everything you experience, if you are totally conscious, you're totally present, and you're actually experiencing life as it is. And that's when you discover everything is extraordinarily beautiful. So stunningly beautiful, oftentimes your nervous system freaks out because it can't handle it. When you go unconscious, you begin to indulge in the thoughts about it, the narrative. Now, it's okay, it's useful, right? I'm using that capacity right now to talk to you, because if I didn't, I couldn't, right? But I'm not trying to plant ideas in your head. I'm trying to turn your attention away from thoughts to the direct experience itself. And when you're looking at something like, look directly at your fear that something outside of you can control you, and see whether it's the thing that's controlling you or your fear of it that is controlling it. If it's the thing, you're screwed. Right? Because it's got power. But if it isn't the thing, if it's only your fear of it that is creating the distress and giving it its apparent power, which means you're actually doing it to yourself, you are now free to completely eradicate all of that from your system. And that's exactly how it works. That's exactly how I do it. Even when I was practicing spiritual healing, that's what I did. It was never about the person. I never even tried to change the thinking or experience of the person. I was practicing metaphysical healing. All I had to do was to deal with my belief in the sick person, and the sick person disappeared. Now, the person would say to me, "Oh, I'm well, thank you," right? Because their sense of it is that they were sick and then they were well, but I knew they were never sick. That it was simply a thought. And I didn't have to deal with it in them, I only had to deal with it here. And the same holds true for fear. It holds true for lack. It holds true for every experience in your life is a subjective idea that you have believed into existence. And I could do a whole satsang just on that, but I've got like about 100 questions now, so I will press on. Is that helping you, seeking truth? And by the way, you guys are more than welcome to chime in if you have a question. And we're having oolong seleg today. For those of you who would like to know. Did we put tequila in this one? No, we didn't put no tequila. Yeah. Remington, my boy Remy in Detroit. How are you, man? Hi, GP. Need some advice, but I'm not going to watch right now. and see if the answer comes naturally. Beautiful. God, you're great. Remy used to be really filled with a million questions, and he's actually kind of like slowing down and letting them come, because they always come from you anyway, even if they're coming out of my mouth. I got the glasses right in my hand. When did I put them on? Errol. Hello, Errol. Hi, G. Can you describe the moment when you finally stopped seeking and how that unfolded for you? Do you have any doubts, or did it click for you immediately? That's a wonderful, wonderful question, and I like to answer it. You know, I'm not a Buddha. Doubts come. They still come. Right? Sometimes they come as physical sensations. I'm just not fooled anymore. Right? So when I finally stopped seeking, it was not like an action like that. You know, I didn't stop seeking, right? I'm seeking, I'm stopping now, right? It wasn't an act. It was simply the need to seek fell away. There were times before that when I tried. Oh, that's how you do it. That's it. You stop seeking. No. And it's just a huge battle inside, right? Don't try to do anything. You know, the way I always present it is that we are simply trying to see what is. You know, when you learned that 2 + 2 = 4, nobody could convince you that 2 + 2 = 3 after that. right? You didn't have to struggle with it. You didn't have to hold on to it. You didn't have to visualize it. It was instantaneous and permanent. And everything changed from that moment on. That's the seeing that I am trying to bring you to. So, because once you see it, there's no doubt, right? Do you doubt that 2 + 2 = 4? I doubt it. So it's a matter of, if there's doubts, press into the doubts. Press into them. Don't go, oh, I got to get rid of the doubts. That'll never work. Well, what's the doubt? What am I doubting? What's the question here? What's the deal that's going on? And little by little, you'll become aware that doubting is simply a function of the mind. It's a function of the mind that's not ever going to stop, because it's one of the ways the mind, one of the things it does. It wants to distinguish. It wants to discriminate. It wants clarity. But for the mind, the desire for clarity and to know without doubt is to simply be safe. The mind is never going to be without doubts. It'll go, oh, I got it. Yeah, that's it. And they go, oh, yeah, but I wonder. And off it goes. That's its nature. So you're not trying to get seeking to stop. You're just beginning to recognize that seeking is simply, it's part of the process, excuse me, it's part of the process we all have to go through, you know, as is getting sucked in by your conditioning, identifying with it, experiencing all the pain and suffering of it, and then beginning to experience an awakening. At some point at that initial experience, seeking begins. You begin to consciously seek out truth. You begin to consciously look for the solutions. You begin to question your assumptions. And little by little, that begins to fulfill itself. If you're fortunate enough, you run into a teacher who can actually take and point your nose in the most direct path to get there. But every path will eventually get there. Some just take a little bit longer. Some are a little bit more circuitous. So let me make sure I actually address this question, because I can sometimes go off. So how it unfolded was just simply becoming aware that the doubts in my head were no more my thoughts than anything else. And that, in fact, whether the mind was feeling, yeah, I got this, I'm totally clear, or, boy, I'm totally confused, that I was looking at that from exactly the same place. And that place I was looking at it from was neither of those. It was absolute, not intellectual clarity, but just absolute spaciousness, in which clarity would appear, confusion would appear, and at that point I realized I was neither one of those. And I'm still vigilant. Doubts come up. You know, something will happen and a fear will come up. And I just stop and I be with it. Right? I don't try to get rid of it. I just go back into that place that is without fear. And I'm open and compassionate and loving to everything that is being felt. And eventually, it works itself out. Sometimes there's a sense of seeking that will arise. And, you know, the seeking isn't a bad thing. That's how we discover stuff. And I just notice it. That's part of what it does. And then I will simply look, say, well, what is it there that feels like it's missing? But I'm always sitting in the position of the one seeing. I never become the seeker. I never take that on as my own. Oh my God, there's still seeking happening. How do I stop seeking? You, the real you, the one that's aware of seeking, isn't seeking anything, right? The awareness doesn't need to strive to be aware, right? You don't have to do it. You don't have to struggle to be. So you simply deepen and deepen and deepen your seeing until you find yourself on the backside of the lens, and that all of creation is in front of the lens. And now your sense of identity has moved into the place that is completely without seeking. And even when that happens, seeking may continue for a little bit. Yeah, don't worry about it. It's not that loud. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. There's a lot of wind here and things are banging around. There's nothing we can do about that. So, does that help you, Harold? Thank you for that question. It's a real important one, because it's kind of, you know, whenever we try to force anything to happen, we are actually feeding the ego. It's one of the big mistakes they make in metaphysics, and in that world of spiritual healing and like, which I was in for a while, it's a big mistake of like really needing to something to happen, and they make that mistake all the time in self-help and other kinds of metaphysical things. You do less and less and less and less, and you'll find that life is doing all of it, and that you're not doing any of it. And that's when the seeking actually stops. You realize you've never been the seeker. That seeking has simply been another activity of the energy system, a necessary one, and it's taken you to the point where you can see that process, which means you're out of it. If you're looking at something, it's not you, right? When you're looking at something, you have to stand apart from it in order to see it. And just keep standing apart from everything until there's nothing left. Because you can't stand apart and see yourself, which means you cannot see yourself, no matter how hard you try. You are the source of all seeing, and therefore cannot be seen. You just are. Ishta, beautiful Sunday from Louisiana. Hello, Ishta. Luca, I'm posting a question now. I will listen to the answer tomorrow because it's late. What do you think about Ho'oponopono? I love it. I think it's a beautiful healing modality, and I think it really goes. Its roots are deeper than most people realize. If you look at it, it's I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. The energy behind it, those four phrases, and the guy who created it, was that no matter what happened out here, he was willing to take responsibility for it. So he showed up at this, I guess it was an insane institution for a criminally insane, the worst criminals on the planet. Nobody even wanted to be there. I mean, people could only work there for a week and have to quit. And all he did was sit in the office and review all of their case studies and say, I'm sorry, forgive me. Thank you, I love you. He just completely took the entire thing on himself. He took complete responsibility for everything that was in the range of his consciousness. And what happened? The entire thing changed. They all reformed. They ended up closing the institution because there was nobody there anymore. There was no need for anybody to be there. Now, that is, in fact, how I learned spiritual healing a long time ago. It had nothing to do with what was out here. If it was on my field of view, it was mine. And whether it was anything was going out there or not, is you never even know whether it is or not, but it's sure going on here, so what's going on here? And that's where all the attention went. And inevitably, if I resolved it here, thump, this changed, this shifted. And so that's what Ho'oponopono is. It isn't just some kind of magic in those particular words. They represent something really horrific. Some really horrible human being did something really terrible, and this guy says, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Right? What an energy that brings in, right? And it's reminiscent of Christ on the cross saying, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. And interestingly enough, the word forgiveness in the Bible, as Christ used it, in the original Greek, original Aramaic in which he said it, is not, our modern word for forgiveness is pardon. You did something, you deserve to be punished, but I'm letting you off the hook. It's a pardon. The original meaning of it means to be found not guilty, to be found innocent. And so that's what he was saying on the cross. Father, find them innocent. They don't know what they're doing. And that's exactly what this man was doing. He found them innocent. He imputed no guilt to them. And what happened? The guilt disappeared. They became guiltless, and it reflected in their lives. There was a wonderful study that was done a long time ago, 20, 30 years ago. They took two grade school classes in the same school. And you know what they did this all through school when I was growing up. There was the smart kid class and the dumb kid class, right? And they didn't call it that, of course, but the kids did, right? And so what they did is they had the classes, they had the smart kids in one class and the dumb kids in the others, but they told the teacher exactly the opposite. They told the teacher of the dumb kids that she had the smart kids. They told the teacher of the smart kids that she had the dumb kids. And guess what happened? The dumb kids became the smart kids became the dumb kids. Right? It's just, I mean, really, folks, let's take a look at what we're doing. We are creating it through our own expectations and our own beliefs. And so somebody like this comes along and it seems absolutely miraculous, but when you really understand it, no. He simply stepped up to to a level of Christianity that I wish Christianity would step up to. He just completely embraced complete responsibility. Also in Christian, he took on the sins of the world, which is exactly how Christ did. It's exactly how Christ healed. He never saw a sick person. It just wasn't, he completely rejected that idea out of hand. And what happened? The sick person disappeared. And all sorts of things, all sorts of miraculous things took place. Not miraculous to him, but miraculous to the people around him. So I hope that answers it for you. That's what I think of Ho'oponopono. Billy Boy 7465. Are there 7,464 other of you? Great to see you again, GP. I was wondering what your thoughts were on the ego identification and disease. Is it the source of illness manifestation? Okay, got to be careful. I am not a doctor. I am not a doctor. Absolutely everything I say is conjecture and my own personal observations. So YouTube, pay attention. Disclaimers here. Leave me on the air, please. Probably should say that. now they're going to. Anyway, the source. The short answer is yes. But we have to understand what the ego is. The ego is when we identify, everybody has to be, you're all conditioned, right? Conditioning does not, if you don't get conditioned, you don't exist. Everything is conditioned. This is phone that I'm reading your things on is energy that's been conditioned into a certain form. Form is nothing but the conditioning of energy. In the human being, it's extremely subtle and extremely complex and extremely elaborate because it's the most adaptive mechanism that's ever existed. That's why we're so successful as a species. You can put a human into pretty much any environment on the planet and it will find a way, we will find a way to survive. We've even survived our own childhood. And that's exactly what this is all about. So when you're a child, you're nervous. You can't think, you can't talk, you can barely feed yourself, right? But all the while, your energy system, your nervous system, is monitoring the environment. It's checking for things. How do I get what I need? How do I not get what I need? It's amplifying these behaviors. It's limiting these behaviors. When it finds the parameters of the environment, whatever that might be, and they might be a wonderful home, it might be a horrific home, but as long as it finds its way to make it through it, it sticks the stake in the ground and becomes stable. And that becomes the normal way in which you engage with the world. Now, this is going on when you're very, it starts in the womb, actually. There's been studies that have shown that these impressions happen even before the nervous system is developed. So it's a very, very subtle, at a very subtle level, this is all happening. Over time, as consciousness develops, you begin to get a sense of self. And when that sense of self begins to come online, it immediately begins to gravitate towards and identify with the conditions of the nervous system. Remember that, think of the conditioning of the nervous system. This is the place in which you live. This is the only place in which you are able to operate. Anything outside of it really doesn't even exist, right? This is the tribe out here. These are all the rules. This is me, and I found my way to be in the tribe. And so within this little bubble here, right, the sense of me begins to arise. And of course, all it knows is this, so this is what I am. That is the birth of the egoic mind. I am my conditioning. The destiny of this body is my destiny. The destiny of this form, and this is my destiny. I am a boy, I am a girl, I am white, I am black, I am from the Midwest, I should never be happy. And these all just become ingrained in us. They're ingrained as energetic patterns, and then later on, the more conscious we begin to personalize them. They begin to come me. Now, they're not you. They've never been you, right? But when that sense of being identifies with conditioning, the limited sense of self is born. And that's what the ego is. It's the identification with the conditioning that makes you feel as if you're a separate self. The moment you identify with your conditioning, there's me, there's them, there's I'm in. Well, two things emerge immediately: the fear of death and the fear of lack. Because now there's me, the shivering little me in this big, cold universe. How am I going to get what I need? And life, from that point on, everything you do is a business transaction trying to get your needs met. Even our intimate relationships, which is really tragic. Let's see, what did I... So, is it the source of illness? Well, at the essence of everything, if you're if you're only running on 2 cylinders, whatever is that's causing those the other 4 or 2 or 8, or if it's a Mercedes, the other 10 to not work is the cause of the illness, right? So here's you. Here's you, right? This is who I think I am. I'm now this little guy looking around, right? And I get sick. Well, what's the cause of that? Well, I'm not connected to, I'm completely cut off from the source of everything I need. So how could I not be, right? If I've been conditioned to eat like, French fries, French fries and hot dogs my whole life, I'm going to be really stunned, that I've got high blood pressure and I'm sick, right? It's a consequence of the character of life we're leading and the choices that we're making, and all of those come back to the sense of self. So to liberate the sense of self from the conditioning is to basically dissolve the egoic mind and thus give you complete and total access to the totality of what it means to be a human. That is health. That's normalcy. And of course, that means that everything needed is actually flowing through the system. And everything that has to take place, takes place. There's nothing restricting it. It is our sense of identity that restricts our access to everything, and it's access to us. And that boundary, I hope you've seen, is completely imaginary. There isn't actually a separation. It got created by the mind long before you had any power to discriminate and tell. So, for my money, yes, everything results from a misunderstanding, a misperception of who you are. Everything can be traced back to that. If you know who you know that you are the energy that animates the body, at which point the energy that's animating the body is flowing at 100% effectiveness, which means disease has no place to go. Now, of course, there's normal processes, right? I didn't look like this when I was 25. Thank God. Right? And there's a natural cycle to the energetic patterns. This is going to decay, and it's not going to be here anymore. And I'm going to say, gee, it was really nice knowing you, right? I'm going to miss it for a little bit, and then do something else. It isn't a great tragedy. That's not sickness. There's a normal functioning of everything. When the car wears out in 10 years, it's not, or 20, or 300,000 miles, that's not a sickness. There's just a normal cycle to things, right? But I plan to be quite well and healthy until I drop over. I don't allow any space for those things to come. And when I do feel it, when I do feel some kind of illness and the like, I completely surrender to the moment. I completely give myself to it. No resistance whatsoever. So if the body's got to ward off some bug, let it ward it off. And I have found consistently that it's there. I feel the sickness, but it interferes not one bit with what I have to do during a day. It's very rare when it needs so much attention that I just kind of like let it all go and lay there. Most of the time it can work in the background and it doesn't really need my help. and I can just go on about my business. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see. Glasses. I'm sitting here going like this. Hi G, it's Sarah Sands from. Oh, Sarah, it is so good to see you. So good to see you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I just got brought a table by my spokesmodel. Lots and lots of love. Oh, Sarah. Oh, it is really so good to see you here. Infinity Coaching says, hi, it's Saab in Paris. I had a simple but profound awakening moment. Okay, you got my mouth watering. In my kitchen last week, oh, good place for it. I tried writing about it last week, but it would take me, it wouldn't let me do it because it was too long. But I created an artistic version of it, which I'll share in your Facebook group. And thanks for your part in that. Oh, beautiful, wonderful, wonderful. Oftentimes, the experience of awakening, you can't put it into words. I do find myself at times just kind of completely empty, nothing to say, no real interest in anything, just this quiet. And it's regarded in the deepest spiritual teachings that the deepest spiritual teaching is silence. Ramana Maharshi was known as the silent sage, and he would talk and he would give discourses and that sort of thing. But for the most part, he would just sit there. And people would come from miles around to just sit in his presence. And that was all it took. Because the truth is a presence. Truth is not a thought. It is not a concept. It's not something you know. It's what you are. And if truth is worth anything, it's got to be living. It can't be just like some tool that you use, right? Well, then what are you? If that's the truth, then what are you that you can manipulate the truth like a blacksmith or something? There's got to be more to it. And if it's the truth, it's the truth about you. Then how do you separate the two of those? So I like silence, and I love the idea that you want to give it expression in a piece of art. That to me is what art is for, is to give expression to that which is just beyond what can be expressed. Right? It will never express it all, of course, right? It'll never actually capture it. But when something has been imbued with a certain level of artistry, something just shines through it. I think I mentioned last week in Satsang how I just was transfixed by the Mona Lisa when I was at the Louvre, to the point where I actually went to the railing on the other side, set up on the railing so I could make sure I could see over everybody. And I sat there for half an hour. I couldn't move. There was something so spectacularly powerful coming through it. And believe me, it wasn't the paint, it wasn't the canvas, it wasn't the technique. There was something else there. There was an nth ingredient. And so that power, I mean, looking for the Mona Lisa in the paint, it's like, it's like looking for the Beethoven's Ninth Symphony in your iPod, right? It's not there, right? It's something else. It's something quite magic. And I say the same thing about consciousness. Looking for consciousness in the brain is like looking for the Mona Lisa in the paint. It's not there. You could stop looking. It's a waste of time. And consciousness is not a function of the brain. And I get a lot of people telling me of course it is. But it's just, yeah, okay, well, fine. Renee hello from Philly. Hello from Philly. Hello, Renee. Sophie, hello from England. Puppy, GP, hello, darling. Hello, Puppy. Hi from Dominican Republic. Well, we've even got more people around the globe today. Infinity coaching, but oh, sorry, yeah, I already read yours before because I saw you continued it. Johan, hello, from Ursula, Madeira Island, that's in Portugal. Hello, Madeira. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. K. Kapoor. Hi, GP. In accordance with your teachings, what advice would you give to someone who wants to know what they want from life? It's actually really very simple. You can't know what you want until you know who you are. I mean, really. Because until then, the wants and desires you have will be a product of your conditioning. It will be the ego's desires, right? You know, we see, oh boy, I have to know who I really am. It's like this great quest and I keep saying, no, it's the only thing worth doing. And if you just put a little bit of attention, you'll find it isn't that hard. We keep fighting with it. We keep putting it off. It is the true inquiry into the nature of your own existence is the most interesting, fascinating, and fun thing you can possibly do. Getting to the point where you can actually question every single assumption that you have lived your life by is so liberating. It is sweet. And so I just encourage people to do it. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to have to be, the sage walking on water before you have a clue as to what you want to have for dinner tonight, right? It's not like that. But every step, every time you turn around from the outward focus and begin to bring it inward, you're taking one step closer. Every step closer means the picture out here is going to change, right? It's inevitable. The tiniest little insight ripples throughout the entire world and ripples throughout your entire life. So on a very practical level, what you can do is to just take a desire in. Let's say something, I don't know what I want to do with my life. Okay, great. Pick something, right? Pick anything. And just bring it in and sit with it for a while. I can sense in you, there's this sense of, I've got to make something happen. So let go of the desperation and make this an exploration instead. Don't make this about finding this thing that you want, but instead fall in love with the process by which it happens. Because many things are going to come and go in your life, but the process is always going to be there. The way in which you live is always going to be there. The things that you do, the things that you have, the places you go, the people you'll see, are going to change constantly. But the approach, the relationship you have with how you live life is where the depth happens. And that should just grow and grow and grow. And of course, the more that grows, the wider the range of choices, and the purer the choices are going to become. They're going to start feeling more and more and more like you, and less like the business transactions of the egoic mind. And that's another thing you can get very sensitive to. If the desire is, what's in it for me, it's your ego. If the desire is just a sense of elation, excitement, anticipation, fun, enthusiasm, you're getting close to the real you, because the nature of the infinite self, while it sounds so big and it's God and the I am and like that, it's very childlike and playful. It's a bit of a trickster too, and it likes to play practical jokes. Whenever I feel a sense that I might be, getting a little bit full of myself, that's when that boiling hot soup goes right in my lap. So you can okay, get it, I got it, I got it, please, no more. So. Does that help you? Please let me know if that it helps you. Let this be let this not be a life that has an agenda, that has an end goal, Because the only end goal is well, you're not here. You know, the end goal is this stops functioning, and I'm pretty sure that's not what you have in mind. So don't make it about right now. See, if it's about what what I can get from life, what I'm going to do with life, then this moment is a stepping stone to that, which means you're never ever going to experience the joy of right now. And of course, the best things that happen in your life come from the experiencing of joy right now, right? You can't make a marvelously happy tomorrow out of a miserable today. Right? It's got to start here. Right? So, start exploring. See this human life as a place to just explore, to taste, to experience, and find out what you like. You know, try a thing. If you don't like it, don't do it again. Do something else. But take out of it the sense that there's some ultimate destination that you have to get to, because there isn't. Even the awakening isn't an ultimate destination. You awake to what's here right now. You simply lose the impulse to be anywhere but here and any time but now. And things are fine. I think it was Michael Brown who said that in the awakening, yes, it's true. You have the power to move that mountain and have it cast in the sea. But he says you also realize the mountain's just fine right where it is. There's nothing you need to do. So, does that help? Kay Kapoor. Sunil. Hi, Sunil. Hi, G. I feel exhausted today after insomnia and a Facebook argument with a friend about Brexit, which dragged on all day long. How do I start to heal the body aches, exhaustion, and these triggers? Okay. Well, let's first go take a nice step back and look at what it is that kept you hooked in a painful and pointless argument about Brexit all day long on Facebook with what I refer to as imaginary friends. Go all the way back to what hooked you. What made that so important that it took the energy? And of course, that's where the aches and pains are coming. That's where the exhaustion is. It just sucked the energy right out of you until there was absolutely nothing left. Now you're like, and insomnia, right? Because look, your mind's an obsessive little dog. It just keeps, it's a dog with a bone. It's never going to stop unless you go, okay, I'm really done. This is absolutely pointless. The ego will never stop arguing for its position. And as long as you're identified with it, that's what you're doing. And you're going to feel the exhaustion of it. You're going to feel the narrowness of it. You're going to feel the anger. You're going to feel, you're going to take the position. You're going to get on your high horse. You know what should happen. We know what breaks it, right? And, I thought it was a bad idea. But, hey, it's not causing me to lose any sleep. Life is going to go on the way it goes on. And so the hook is, I'm right. God damn it. And you're not. And do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Pick one. All of these things, all of the things the world's facing right now are very complex. They're actually they boil down to some very simple principles. But on the level in which we're engaged, and the level this kind of argument is engaged, it was a level that's very, very complex, with all sorts of different factors involved, that no human being on the planet is capable of sorting out. So let go of your position. Completely let go. And when I say just, you got hoodwinked by the ego, don't beat yourself up about it, right? Don't turn it into, oh, I was so stupid, I shouldn't have done that. No, you needed to do that so that you could see for yourself what happens when the ego takes over and you get in the position, you get stuck in that position. Remember, being stuck in a position because you believe it to be true is the very source of suffering. Stuckness is suffering. The moment you get stuck in a position, you can't see another position. You've created enemies. You've created a right and a wrong, a good and an evil. You have cut yourself off from the possibility of a completely different perspective coming, right? And you have created, you have solidified yourself into basically a stone. The nature of life is to flow. When you don't take a position, or at least not a hard line position, you have to take a position. I'd prefer that over that. But then you let it go, and you let just the wisdom events take their course. You are fluid. You are just moving from place to place. You're not stuck anywhere. Take a position for a minute, but you recognize that it's not an absolute. It's just a position. Okay, I got to take a position now. No, we shouldn't do that. That's wrong. This is better. This is more loving. Let's do that. This is less loving. Let's not do that. Then I can let it go, right? Because I am not my position. You know, I can't define myself by the position. The moment you do, you're stuck. That's the wheel getting stuck. That's dukkha. That's suffering. So just open your hand, let the entire thing go, and you will feel that energy begin to emerge again. Right? Because it hasn't sucked you dry, actually. It has simply just siphoned off a big chunk of it and cut you off from the source. The source is simply the perfect middle way, just the flowing. And when you get stuck in a position, it sucks it all up, but the faucet gets turned off, and no more goes in, and you just collapse. So just open it up, let go of the position. You've made your statement, obviously. You have been very clear as to what your position is on it. So now let that position go. And now let life just unfold itself in exactly the way it intends. Believe me, nobody's in control of this thing. You know, if you think there's this secret society out there, the Illuminati or the Rothschilds that are controlling everything, they ain't controlling shit. Believe me, God is having a good laugh at their expense. Seeking truth. Hello. You say the devil isn't true, but what about that serpent voice one hears in their head? Maybe suicidal thoughts on sudden anger for no reason. These thoughts are what most people have. Yeah, don't misunderstand me. You know, when I say that the devil isn't real, I don't mean, he's this horned critter with, cloved feet and walking around messing up other people's lives. The devil is a metaphor for the egoic mind. And you're absolutely right. That is that voice in your head, right? But the problem isn't the voice in your head. The problem is you believe it, right? You can't stop the voice from speaking. You can't stop the devil from trying to seduce you. Like I said before, the best salesman in the world can't sell you if you're not buying. You don't believe that voice in your head. It's that simple. You're absolutely right. That voice is the devil. That is Lucifer. That is Beelzebub. All right? So I'd act like it is and say, you've got nothing to tell me that I actually want to hear. I mean, he's known as the liar and the father of it. All he does is lie. Nothing the mind tells you is true. So don't listen to it. As Wu Hsien said, if the village idiot calls you stupid, do you pay any attention? Why do you listen to your mind? This is the reason. The egoic mind is narrow, it's petty, it feels cut off, it feels contentious, it's conflictive, it feeds on conflict, and it's this voice speaking in your head. And if you agree with it, you literally animate it, right? You give it life. You understand? You're giving it expression. If you don't give it expression, where does it go? What can it do? The thought can't make you do something. You have to do it. So you don't listen to it. And you're absolutely right. Most people do listen to it. And so the world is run by egos. And that's the devil. That is the devil. That is the devil at play in the field of human consciousness. The story, the whole book of Revelation is about the exposing of that ego as the ego, and that it will ruin the world to prove itself. And the metaphor of the, falling from heaven, the pride that it didn't want to surrender to God, these are metaphors for the egoic mind. It doesn't want to surrender. Right? But you have to listen to it, agree with it, believe in it, and act it out for it to have any life whatsoever. So you sit in the driver's seat. You have all the power. Now, I don't, I'm on YouTube here all over the world. I'll talk to anybody who will listen and tell them not to listen to it, right? So, yeah, but you are listening, right? So I can't do anything about anybody who isn't paying any attention to me, but you are. So you stop listening to your mind. You stop believing it, and then you will start to have this aura of presence, this aura of peace, this aura of inner strength and power. And others are going to notice it, and they go, what's up with you? And then you'll be able to tell them, I'm not my mind. I'm not this stupid little annoying voice in my head. And the beautiful thing about that is the less attention you get, the less strong it gets, until it really becomes, it goes from being the great red dragon and the devil to this little bratty little, please, come on, help me. Right? It just becomes this weak little, like a gnat. You just brush it away. But you have that power. So, when I say the devil isn't true, I don't mean all I mean is not an entity. Right? It is simply the pattern of thought. It is the egoic pattern of thoughts, and so you don't listen to them, right? Lots of people do, but you don't listen to them, and you'll be able to help other people stop doing that as well. Right, back to the glasses. Hi, GP. Could you talk about the origins of low self-esteem and self-shame? This is from Sun Apollo. How does one get to the point of feeling completely confident in themselves? Forgive me for sounding like a broken record. I'll answer the second question first, and that is know who you actually are. When you know who you are, there's nothing but confidence, because there's absolutely nothing other than the most rapturous beauty, power, authority, creativity. The infinite resources of the universe you find are your resources. And so there's nothing but confidence. But you have to know who you are, because the egoic mind can never be fully confident. It'll act like it, we call it arrogance and bravado, but it's not really confident. That's why it loves power, wants to control things. People, if you're really confident, you don't care about controlling anything. You don't need to control anything. So now your first question, the origins of low self-esteem are simply, they arise out of our childhood experiences and our childhood traumas. And remember, a trauma is just simply when you are put in a threatened position, which for a child, what seems quite ordinary to an adult can seem quite life-threatening, quite extreme to a child. But if, the normal mechanism for dealing with a dangerous situation is fight or flight, right? And the body prepares for that. It prepares to either run away or to fight. But if you can't run and you can't fight, which is the case if you're a child and the one causing you the pain is your parents, you are going to experience trauma. And trauma is simply when the body takes that same energy, which is supposed to get discharged in the fight and the flight, has nowhere to go, so it packs it up and it shoves it somewhere for later. That's a trauma. And then the real damage of that begins to take place, because it begins to develop layers of behavior to keep that at bay, to keep that out of sight, to keep that from being seen. And believe it or not, the sense of low self-esteem, self-diminishment and like is one of the techniques by which it keeps it hidden. Now you say, well, why would it? Because if I'm low self-esteem, let's say I really went out, I tried to do something, and consistently every time I tried to do something, my parents just, slap me down, diminish me, make me small. I'm eventually going to come to the conclusion, right? I can't handle that. Right? I can't handle that. So how do I keep this How do I keep this under wraps? How do I keep this exuberant energy down? Well, I just become low self-esteem. I'm not worth it. Why should I even do that? And all of a sudden, even the energy to attempt to do it is gone. And this is very well concealed now. You have become that. You become that one that is exactly the opposite of actually who you are. And the point is to simply keep the trauma from being exposed, because you were exposed to death. And so it feels as if this has to be kept down. It has to be kept silent, or I'm going to die. That's the level of intensity there is about it. And so the way I approach this on a therapeutic level is in what I call inner reconciliation. And that's beginning the process of turning towards the distressed energy instead of away from it. You recognize that the sense of a lack of self-esteem and self-worth is part of the conditioning. It is something that was programmed into you. And you don't need to understand the entire process of it. It's enormously complex because the energy system is the most complex system that's ever happened, at least as far as we know. There may be some other critters out there that are even more so. But at least within our sphere, you know, the human brain is the most dense thing in the universe. There's more stuff in there than anywhere else in the universe. It is really, really... So we don't have to understand the whole thing. Instead, just simply recognize that impulse towards demeaning yourself, and you probably have no control over it, it just kind of happens. Certain circumstances arise, and you're the shrinking violet. You just pull yourself back. Notice it happening, and stop fighting with it. Stop trying to run away from it. Stop trying to fix it. Stop trying to do self-help on its ass. I mean, it won't do any good. Right? Instead, turn towards it with the deepest compassion. Imagine a close friend of yours came to you was like that, or a child, terrified, just and feeling horrible about it. What would you do? Ooh, go away, leave me alone. Here, read this book, take this course. You wouldn't do it. Right? You just pick it up. You'd hold her. You'd rub her hair. You'd comfort her. So do that to yourself. Give yourself the kind of loving attention that you didn't get in the first place that caused it. Right? I mean, it really seems pretty common sense to me. If it was a lack of love that caused it, it's going to be a love that's going to cure it. And that's all it is. Yes, it's uncomfortable. It's not going to feel like this great loving thing. It's going to feel very uncomfortable. Because remember, the energy is trying to keep this hidden, even from you. Right? But that energy of love, when it begins to create a sense of safety inside, there's no defense against unconditional love. Because none is needed. And when that's felt, everything just begins to unfold. All of it begins to start to come to the surface. The fears, the doubt, all of it. And if you just stay with it little by little, little by little, little by little, even that original trauma will come to the surface and be discharged. And you will know a freedom you've never known before. And you'll just find yourself being confident. It won't be a quality you have to cultivate. It will just happen. Because there's no such thing as a child that isn't confident. They don't exist. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to beat the confidence and love and joy and enthusiasm and creativity out of us. It takes years of this stuff being heaped on us to actually restrict the naturally exuberant energy that is our birthright. So does that answer it for you? Sun Apollo, right. Patang, my friend in Israel. My awakening moment occurred when I got out of my mind and lost my separate being. I'm not sure. Did you say beat out of my mind? I just got by out of my mind and lost my separate being. Well, whatever it happens, wonderful. And it can even happen through some really powerfully, what appear to be powerfully negative experiences. Anything that shifts you out of that identification with the separate self, because it just gets too damn painful. That's what happens to a lot of people. It just gets so excruciatingly painful. That I mean, that was my story. That was the story of Eckhart Tolle. He was just absolutely miserable to the point where he just said, he was like, how did he say? He wanted to get out of my mind. I just can't get out of my mind. I think it's the way he put it. And then I just can't live with myself. I just can't live with myself anymore. That was it. Yeah. And in that moment, all of a sudden, a little light went on and said, well, wait a minute. Who can't live with myself? And suddenly, a separation took place. And little by little, he began to see that this whole structure of an identity was nothing but a pattern of energy in the nervous system, just as I've described it. He called it the pain body, which is a beautiful term for it. It's very expressive of it. But just that idea, it was just so painful. Yeah, I just can't live with myself. I can't live with my... Is there another me that can't live with this me? And suddenly the dichotomy begins to unfold. And really, that's exactly what it is. We identify with somebody that isn't us. And then we're suffering for it. We go, God, I got to change me. No, you got to be free from you. Quote Papaji, you want to be free? You must vanish. And then he'd laugh. Papaji was a character. Anyway, let's see. Poppy says, a friend of mine from college, Eva, is just a girl I like to talk to and enjoy our time outside, maybe go for coffee. Though I decided to let her go because she's so gossipy. I can't stand it, but I'm attached to her comments on me. It's like she gives me the best loving comments about my art. She is kind of funny, but can't accept that she loves gossip and her life is miserable. It's difficult to accept her flaws, but it's hard to let her go. I'll choose to let her go eventually. It's funny how the mind plays you. I feel she's like a witch. Ha ha ha. Okay. I'm pretty sure she's not. Well, yeah, of course. All the relationships, we like the good parts, we don't like the bad parts. Right? Welcome to being human. I would take the opportunity, simply because you are attached to her, and she obviously loves you. I can feel there's some genuine affection there. I would use it as an opportunity to explore yourself as to what is it about that you don't like, and use it as an opportunity to completely let go of being in any position. Let go of the judgment, let go of the resistance, right? And I'm not asking you to hang out with her for the rest of your life. I'm just asking you to use the opportunity that it's there, because you aren't ready to let go of it. And when you are, it'll be gone. So as long as you're not, put it to good use. You don't make it just something you endure until you can get rid of it. When people are gossipy, they're in pain. Right? They're busy talking about others, because everything they say about others is simply trying to make themselves feel better about them. Right? If I criticize somebody, I am without knowing it taking a position that I'm better. And I need to shore up that position that I'm better, and so I look around at others and I say, oh, they shouldn't be like that. I'm judgmental and critical and gossipy, catty even, right? So be really, really sensitive and loving towards what's clearly a sense in her of not being enough, of not being valued enough, of not being loved enough. Like I said, it doesn't mean you have to be a friend with her forever, but I always prefer to see exactly how far and how deep you can make a relationship go before you let it go. I'm convinced that in terms of our relationships, we either abandon them too soon or too late. We never actually give them the right kind of attention and love that allows them to flower and grow And I do find that if you do, when it's time for them to end, it is just so natural and so easy. And of course there will be, if you're ready to jump out of it, the first time there's a bump in the road, you're never going to know intimacy. So so bear that in mind. Really explore it. Explore it. And if you do that, completely open, you're like the whole Ho'oponopono thing, right? So, okay, I brought this cattiness into my life. Right? I brought this in. So what is it here to teach me? And you may just find that a door opens up for you to have an even deeper conversation with this friend of yours than you ever had before, and you go right through all of that other nonsense to something that would be satisfying, because she wants satisfaction. She just doesn't feel like it's easier to talk about others than to endure the fact that you simply want to be loved, you want to be felt, you want to be seen, you want to be appreciated. So give her some of that. See what happens. Oh my God, the list is so long. Oh my, how lovely. Maggie K says, I don't know how to change the amount, but I wanted to somehow send a token of my appreciation. Well, thank you, Maggie. That's beautiful. She just donated $1.99. If anybody does want to donate to help me keep this on the air, because I mean I do it all myself, and you can go to gpwalsh.com/donate, and you can make a one-time donation. I think the minimum is $1. So if you don't have it and you want to give, you save up. But you can also do it recurring as well. So both of those are through PayPal. If you prefer to use Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/GP but Patreon is only a recurring donation, whereas PayPal will let you do a one-time donation. And believe me, every little dollar helps, because if I had my way, I would just do this all day. You know, I wouldn't bother selling any courses or anything. Just I would just do this, because I think this is what's probably going to make the biggest difference in the world. So anyway, thank you, Maggie. That's really touching. Yeah. And she says, I wanted to send a token of my appreciation. Well, I got your token. I got it. Poppy says, Maggie, you're a kind soul. GP's the best. Thanks for helping. GP, your words are profoundly helpful and immensely changed my life. This is Jason. Hi, Jason. I intend to suggest your teachings to as many as possible. Namaste. Mr. Walsh. Oh, Mr. Walsh. Whoa. Mr. Walsh is my father, and he's dead. So I'm GP. But I appreciate it with it. It's a sign of respect, and I take it as such. Thank you. This is so much fun. Let's see. River of Wellness. Hi, GP. What part does being with the I Am presence play in creating your physical circumstances, or do you create purely through imagination and thoughts? Thanks for being here. Love, Julie in the UK. Julie from the Love Boat. I don't know why. I thought of that. The activities director. I never even watched the show. How is it that something get? Well, okay. The physical circumstances, what we call the physical circumstances, right? What we call the physical is simply energy in a momentary form. But it's moving so fast that it appears to be static and stable. Right? And so we call it physical, and we think of physical as concrete in here. There's nothing solid here at all. Everything is absolutely quite transparent. It is quite vacuous. It's, you know, it's 99.99999% empty space, and we have projected on it this sense of it being a thing. There's no thing here, right? There's simply a perpetual functioning, right? There's not anything. You can't slice time thin enough to actually find a thing. Oh, here I am. Whoop, now I changed. I mean, it's like I know this is totally inconceivable and your mind's going to go, huh? But it's like all there is change, but there's nothing there changing. That's actually what's happening. There's a sense, but the sense of there being a thing, a form, a solid object, is completely a projection of your mind. Now, there is one thing that is actually here, that isn't just change. And that's what you're referring to, the sense I am. And I can, again, this isn't an ideology, this isn't a theology. Just check in with yourself. Just look back across your life. There's always been something that has been the same. When you were 15 or 5 or 20 or 60 or however far off you go, the circumstances were completely different. But put your attention on the actual experiencing of the circumstances. Was the knowing of them ever different? So the knowing of the content and the context, right, has been absolutely changeless. Whereas the content itself has changed constantly. As a matter of fact, you couldn't even notice it changing if you weren't looking at it from a place, at least of relative stability, of sameness. It is from this place of absolute motionless that all motion is detected. The I am, then, is the only thing that actually is. Everything else appears. Now, taking that a little bit further to go into your question, well then where the hell did all this stuff come from? Right? Well, it didn't. Remember, it's not actually a thing. It is a projection. Right? So the experience of things is simply a projection of a world. And that projection arises directly out of the sense of being. Okay, I'll take this is about as far down the rabbit hole as I think I want to go with this, but it's pretty far down. Matter of fact, it's about as far down as you can go. Notice that the sense of I am that you make reference to, and you even say, what part of does being with the I am presence play in creating your physical circumstance? I want to take that apart for a second. What part does being with the I am? Who's with the I am? Just stop for a second. Now, this is that ultimate, right? I'm with the I am, the divine principle God. I go, okay, well, who's with him? Who's looking at it? Who's noticing the sense I am? And can that be itself seen? That which is perceiving the I am, can that be perceived? Perception stops there. The sharpest knife can't cut itself. The ultimate absolute perceiver cannot perceive itself. Everything else can be perceived. And everything else that is perceived by and in and is made of the absolute perceiver. So it isn't like there's somebody who's performing in a creative act of imagination. It appears that way because thoughts come, right? They take form. They make perceptions. They create a universe. And all of that's wonderful. There's no problem with that as long as the sense I am doesn't identify with one of the characters in the universe. As long as the sense of I am continues to identify with that which is prior even to that, which cannot even be fathomed, cannot be known, cannot be described, it is the nameless and the formless, then that sense I am is just sinks back into the mother of all Buddhas, the ultimate wisdom. That sense I am, it's beautiful the way Nisargadatta put it. He said that sense I am can either turn towards the manifest universe, outward towards the manifest universe, or inward to infinity. The sense I am is the creative principle, but it's the firstborn of the ultimate. It is the the sense I am is the God of the universe. That's Brahma. That's Allah, right? But it isn't the ultimate. With them is the universe. That which perceives even that is completely imperceivable. And so from the I am, the sense I am, a universe springs. And it's creative. God is a creative. Look at the universe. Pretty creative. Right? And then within the universe is a million trillion different perceptions and perspective. I mean, the universe looks different to a bug than it does to you, right? Why is your version right? It's wrong. As far as the bug's concerned, it's quite content, you know. Bees see flowers in the most magnificent way. My goodness, it's a light show. I mean, effervescent. It's just like, it's crazy. If you actually see the sense, if you've seen pictures of through ultraviolet photography of the eyes, because bees' eyes are ultravioletly sensitive, it's like Wonderland. It's like tripping on mushrooms or something. It's just this spectacular landscape. That's their world. That's their universe. Right? But we assume that's the ego. My perception. This is the universe. That's right. My point of view is correct. As I'm talking with the other person before about taking a position. Right? The moment you do that, you have hopped in to the universe that the I am has created. The I am has basically fallen into the looking glass. It started to become a character. Walt Disney has forgot he's Walt and he thinks he's Mickey. So, does that answer it for you? River of Wellness, beautiful name. Mike Allison, please explain non-dual. Is it just accepting all? In practice, yeah. In practice, the non-duality is simply letting everything be the way it is. But what it really means is that the essence of existence is that there is no separation between the perceiver and the perceived. The universe does not exist separate from our perception of it. And what I was just talking about with the I am and the like, and the way the bee sees the universe and the way we see the universe, it's actually the same one, right? We're all looking at the same thing, but we all see something different. Mooji likes to say there's one Earth, but there's 8 billion worlds. Everybody walks through a world of their own creating because of the nature of the nervous system is, you know, you can only process so much stuff. And so it filters out this, and it amplifies that, and that's what we perceive. And because that's the range of our perception, we think that's all there is to it. That's the world. And then we argue and fight over it. And blow each other up and stuff, and stockpile weapons. It's like, God, this is insane, right? Because we think my perception is the perception, right? Which is that is the narrowness and pettiness of the egoic mind latching on to the phenomena of perception. But when we see it is just a perception, we begin to become free from it. Things begin to loosen up. More information begins to come in. We see opportunities that we didn't see before. So the non-dual approach is simply that that the subject and object collapse into one, because it's all being perceived by exactly the same thing. And you can verify that for yourself by just attempting to step as deeply into the place from where you are perceiving as you possibly can. And stepping out of the mind's normal assumptions and the like, and stepping into this place where you are simply experiencing without any thoughts, without any narrative, without any explanation. And you will find that what emerges is a sense of oneness. One of my earliest awakenings I had, I was about 17 years old, and I was having, and I got completely, I got completely absorbed in the thought that I could not discern whether or not what I was experiencing out here was in fact out here. Maybe it's how could I tell? And I examined every which way I possibly could to find some kind of proof that there was me here and a world there that I was perceiving it. I couldn't find one. And it blew my mind. It's like I dream every night and it seems as if it's real. What makes this real? And I could find absolutely no evidence for it whatsoever. I went, holy shit. And it shook me to my bones. And in that shaking, it broke open all of the trapped traumatic material. And over the next 2 years, I went into the deepest darkness you could possibly imagine, which culminated on my awakening on the bridge, which many of you have heard about. It's a matter of exploring. This has to become important enough to you that you explore it deeply. Because believe me, your mind is going to give you all sorts of distractions, all sorts of things that are going to seem like they're really important, you should be doing them. Right? But what is more important than actually knowing the real truth of being? Who you really, really are. I can't imagine going through life without making that a priority. If you recognize that who you think you are is determining every experience you have, I think it kind of makes sense to know what you actually really are. If you know what you really are, you just don't experience a perception, you experience reality. What do we got here? 92 minutes. All right, we can go a little longer. How are you guys doing here? How's my live studio audience doing? Tell them what we got for them, Jake. I actually used to do voiceovers. Let's see. Does that help, Mike? I actually have a video here on YouTube on what is non-duality. It might be helpful. But I actually try to avoid long explanations of it because like anything else, it really easily can become a concept. And for many people, and most of the videos you're going to see on YouTube, it is. It's really described conceptually. And you know, I'm kind of a touchy-feely guy. I want you to experience it. I want you to feel it. I want you to see it. I want it to become your lifeblood. To see that the universe is not dualistic. And that there's actually no contradiction between the non-dual essential and the apparently dual expression of it. That what appears as many is in fact one. But it doesn't mean that there's nothing there. It just means that the many and the one are actually one. It's like this, I guess. If I asked you to do what music was, you'd have to just sing a song, right? And, you know, roll out the barrel, we'll have a barrel of fun. And I go, oh, so music is roll out the barrel. Well, no. That's. But there's also da 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 da. Oh, so it's roll out the barrel. Da da da. No. It's actually, it's like all songs and the potential for every song that could ever possibly be. And but eventually I go, I go, oh, they're all music. So you can't actually separate music from the song. And you can't separate the song from music. They're one. They're apparently many, but they're one. Right? And this is the mystery of it. This is why a lot of the non-duality actually goes off into the absolute. There's nobody here. There's nothing to do. There's no, right? You know, and that's like, please, none of those cliches here, because they don't actually capture the essence. They're a step away. It's like Hinayana path rather than Mahayana. Mahayana recognizes it neither exists nor does not exist. It is neither this nor that, nor both nor neither. It is simply what it is. In Buddhism, they would call it suchness. It is both music and the song simultaneously. And you can't have one without the other. You are both the infinite and the particular simultaneously. The entire universe is expressed in you. Which means you're not separate from the universe. The universe isn't separate from you, but the universe isn't just this amorphous whole. The universe is every single element in it. So the element in it doesn't exist separate from it, like the song does not exist separate from the song, but separate from music. But music is not limited to a song. Does that help make it more clear? So search for that within yourself. Put aside the idea that what you're looking at is actually something separate from myself, and see if you can find yourself having a much more intimate relationship with everything. Suddenly, little by little, everything becomes myself. Not the egoic self, because of course it isn't. The nature of the egoic self is separation, right? But if you just put that aside, the idea that I'm perceiving something separate, and just be with it, the sense of separation will begin to disappear, and the line, the imaginary line that appears to separate you from that will also begin to dissolve, and you won't be able to find the boundary anymore. And then you'll find the entire thing, everything, is all appearing within the same music, for lack of a better term. Come on. Let's see. Renee, I've been into astrology lately, and it has allowed me to be more aware of the energy system within me and others. Curious on your thoughts. I think astrology is very useful. What I found, and my ex-wife was a world-class astrologer. She actually was she actually consulted two of the presidents of her country while they were in office. They came to see her. And she herself would say that she even had a TV show that was called Liberation or Freedom. It's all in Spanish. I never could watch any of them. I can't even say it now. Destiny or Freedom, yeah. And she was something like astrology. If you are not conscious, if you are identified with your conditioning, astrology is 100% accurate. It will tell you everything, because everything is set in motion. It's following the patterns. The stars are not controlling you. They are not causative. They are reflective. There's a picture that's painted in the sky, and that picture at the moment of your birth corresponds to the birth. There's a wholeness. There's an integrated wholeness to it. So, but if you become conscious, all bets are off. You are no longer subject to that. Buddha clarified the same thing. When you know who you are, karma ends. Karma is for the person you think you are, not for you. That's the end of karma. Ain't that a mind blower? Mind floor. So it's very useful, and people who are good at it it's really kind of a means for intuition. She was incredibly intuitive about it. I've met other people who were like, had some psychic abilities. I met one person who read palms. Now, I always thought that was just such a joke, but it was uncanny. She could barely speak English, and her son actually would tell me what she was saying. But for her, she would just look there, and then it would just kind of give an input. She was off somewhere, right? It was just something that would like cue in her, and she'd pick up on the energy. And it was almost like, the dowsing rod. Right? It wasn't, the power wasn't in that. It was in the practitioner. But it was kind of like their tool, kind of the thing that revved up the engine a bit. So yes, you will understand the flow of energy. I mean, Carl Jung used it. He saw it as archetypes. There is a school of astrology that looks at it as archetypes, that Mars represents something, that Saturn represents psychological things. I did the same thing when I taught the chakras. They weren't spinning vortexes of light. They represented aspects of consciousness. They were archetypical rather than causative or an actual phenomena. So for me, everything always comes back to the perceiver, the relationship with the perceiver, and the perceiver, its relationship to the perceived. And the most important thing I like to get across is that the universe is of your making. Whatever you think it is, it is. There is nothing out there. There's no law of attraction out there. There's no law of astrology. There's no law of physics out there. All of it is a functioning of the perception of consciousness. It is all within consciousness. We have just ignorantly projected on it an external objective existence that it doesn't actually have. It's not out there. It's all happening on the back of your eyeballs. Your eyeballs are happening on the back of your eyeballs. There's nothing exists separate from the perceiver of it. The second bodhisattva practice that Buddha gave to advanced students was perceiving the non-existence of external existence. We are so used to thinking that what I'm looking at exists separate from my perception of it, that we don't even bother stopping and saying, well, how do I know that? Now, something just kind of hit me over the head when I was 17 and introduced me to that idea. So I'm doing it to you. How do you know that? And if you can't say it for certain, notice how many decisions made on your life are based on the fact that you're assuming that it's true. And if it isn't true, what the what the bleep? What the bleep? Which is a good movie, by the way. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So I got off on that just from the. Oh, come on back. Come on. Where are you? Oh, I got replay. All of a sudden it won't. Come on, shrink. Oh, there it goes. Okay. Let's see. Does that answer it for you? I mean, I don't tell anybody to not do any practice. I have nothing of the kind. I always want to take all the practices and squeeze every last drop out of my can. Because every practice, however elaborate and sophisticated and mature and advanced it is, every practice is temporary. There's no such thing as the ultimate practice. The ultimate is nothing but you. Because, hey, once you know who you are, what practice more is needed? I mean, if you've achieved the goal of the practice, why do you need the practice anymore? They're not eternal. They're not infinite. I mean, Buddha, the greatest teacher ever, even said, my teachings are temporary. You get in a boat, you go to the other side of the lake, you don't pick the boat up and carry it with you across the desert. You're done. It's taking where it's supposed to go. So you let it all go, and eventually you let them all go, because you don't need any anymore. You know who you are. You are who you are. You are the spontaneous arising of everything that you need. Sunil says, thank you. I can't read any more than that. It's beautiful seeing the activity of seeking or any painful feeling is passing through this space, which I am. Yeah, it takes the sting out of it and releases me from its grip. Nothing to add. Perfect. Perfect. That's it. You're the sky. You're going to have a horrendous thunderstorm. It goes away. The sky is completely unaffected. It's as if it never happened. Oh, a couple other people are like donating money. Oh, bless your hearts. Thank you so much. Wow, that's great. Feels like losing interest in the story. Yeah, you know what's really wonderful? You completely lose interest in the story of the ego, and you'll gain just a voracious appetite for life. But your life doesn't need a story. Our story about what it is so narrow and petty and small that we don't experience life as it is. And when you experience, when you just put the story aside, you experience the magnificence of it. Sometimes it's so overwhelming it hurts. But you don't need a story for it. Yeah, very good, very, very good. The best way, you want the easiest way to, you want your little mind quieting exercise? Don't pay attention. It's got nothing to tell you, If the show on TV is really boring, do you bother watching? Nobody has to, oh, God, I wish, but this show has got me. My show has got me. How do I quiet my show? Right? You're not interested. Who cares? I don't watch sitcoms. Why? They're boring. It doesn't take discipline, right? Nigel. Hello, Nigel. I hear the word Nigel. I just want to say it. Nigel. Hello, Nigel. It's just got such an English. Hi from London. I am new to meditating on these issues and find your channel and personality so easy to get into. Do you have any advice on maintaining the awareness throughout the daily grind? Oh, if I got a buck for every time I've been asked this, I wouldn't have to ask for donations, believe me. This would be all funded off the interest. I mean, it is the $20 million question, right? You should see all the heads on the other side of the camera. Oh yeah, big smiles. Yeah. Okay. First thing is let's. Obviously, the reason that question comes up is because you have experienced it. You've experienced the release of it. You've experienced the feeling of it. Some of you may even had dramatic experiences with it. Maybe some, light show or something. I mean, it happens. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, it's gone, it's vanished, the intensity's gone, right? What I do is I say, okay, you experienced something very, very real. Now, who's the one that had the experience? I'm not interested in the experience. They're wonderful, they're beautiful, but they come and go. Anything that comes and goes can't be you, right? Because if it went, you'd be gone too. But you're still here watching it go. So it can't be you. So who's the one watching? And so when you say, maintaining the awareness throughout the daily grind, okay, what does that mean? What that means is always that the experience you had when you were not distracted and you were just here present and what that felt like. But then you are distracted, your mind wanders off someplace, it feels differently. Well, how do I maintain the awareness? Well, let me ask you a very simple question. When you're saying throughout the day, my daily grind, who's aware that it's a daily grind? Is there another awareness that now has to try to get you back to this awareness? Or is it the same awareness? Different content. In one instance, the content is a feeling of openness and spaciousness, and of course we like that. We want to go home to that. We want, But in the next moment, it can be like chaos, right? But is the awareness of those two the same or not? And is that not you? So the awareness is not a circumstance or a condition or a feeling that you are aware of. It is what is aware of the feeling. And so the awareness is the same awareness, whether it's aware of utter bliss or if it's aware of just a horrific pain. The awareness is the same. And it's only the sense that I want something to be different. I want this instead of that. But that I wanting it to be different, isn't that also being perceived? Isn't that element? Isn't the one that has a preference for this over that, doesn't it have a quality about it that is quite perceivable? And if it's perceivable, and of course, it can't perceive itself, which means that what we normally think of as the subject, right, I'm feeling really shitty, right, is itself an object in the lens, caught in the headlights of the ultimate subject, which is awareness. What else is aware except awareness? And is there another one there somewhere? So if you're aware of your daily grind, is that not awareness? So take a nice step back. Here's my advice. Take a nice step back and just notice that which is aware of all of it. And then notice this relentless pursuit of having one state over another. You hear Eckhart Tolle talk about that all the time, this unwillingness to simply be with what is. But that which is unwilling to be with what is, isn't you. That's the egoic mind. I don't like this. This shouldn't be that way. Why can't I be peaceful all the time? Well, awareness is simply there. It's simply that which is aware. And notice, it's beyond all of it. It is beyond all of it. It is beyond the bliss, and it's beyond the misery. It is perfect stillness. It is the ultimate ananda, which is pure, unruffled peace. And yet, simultaneously, the explosion of a universe can happen within it, and it is not the least bit affected. Continue to bring the sense of I. Drop the idea of trying to make conditions more harmonious, and bring the sense of I back home to the ultimate perceiver, to the awareness that is aware of all of it. And at that point, you will be in the state of perfect peace, even in the midst of total chaos. Is that working for you, Nigel? Jorge of Portugal. Namaste, namaste, Jorge. Awareness has always an object to be aware of, or differently, awareness does not need an object as it is presence. It doesn't need an object, but the objects happen. We don't need to be aware of something. And this is probably one of the most subtle things that people have to come to on the non-dual path, and that is the nature of self-awareness. Because for most of us, perception, we see perception as, I perceive the cup. Perception being a subject-object relationship. But how do you know the ultimate perceiver that can't be perceived? How does he know he exists? How does he know anything? Right now, if I ask you, exist, or yes, anybody who answers no, I'll have to, well then who's answering? Everybody answers yes. Now, when I asked the question, in between the time when I asked the question and you gave me the answer, where did you go to find out? What did you refer to? You just know. It's kind of an intuitive, subjective sense. Now, do you need anybody to confirm it for you? Do you need to see it in a mirror? Do you need to take a picture of it? Do you need some guy with a lab coat and a checklist? Oh, yep, 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 yep. Yes, you do. You just know. How? It's not a subject-object relationship. Subject-object relationship in perception works everywhere in the universe except here. This is the one exception. Mooji refers to it as a non-phenomenal recognition. It is the self recognizing the self, awareness aware of itself, but not as an object. You follow that, guys? Right. So objects come and go, obviously. They come and go in awareness. But the end of the road, the end of the search, the deepest you can possibly go is the place of I simply am aware of myself. Now you take everything else out of that. Take everything else out of that soup. Any thoughts of who you are, the person, the gender, the race, the age, any of that sort of stuff. Take all of that out because that's all added later. You go, nothing left, nothing left, nothing, no past, no future, no present. No waiting, no nothing, just that. And can you get rid of that? And how do you know it? You know it because you are it. This is the Sat Chit Ananda, being, consciousness, bliss. Being and knowing are one. Being does not just exist and then is known by something. Knowing does not exist as an attribute of something. Knowing is being. How's that for you, Jorge? Troll McTrollerson. I'm so in the business transaction side of life and it sucks. Well, okay, good news, troll. You know it sucks. Think of all the millions that are out there in that business transaction world, and they don't know it sucks yet. They're still struggling and striving and trying to make it happen and all of that. You are in a great position. Now, don't think the boat of your life is going to turn on a dime because suddenly you realize, oh, I really don't like this. Let this insight grow. But let it go from going, God, this really sucks, to, I am so glad I'm aware that it sucks. So what doesn't suck? And let your attention go there. Start really feeding the parts of you that get elated by something, that aren't just not liking, which means moving away from, but are liking, which means moving towards. Just give that a little bit of attention, and it'll free up the energy so that it won't be like, you're going to, run off to India and start wearing robes. There'll be a very gentle transition out of a transactional-based way of life into an existential way of life, a collaborative way of life, a loving, intimate way of life, where it's not a zero-sum game, where it's win, 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 win. Everybody wins. So I think you're in good shape, actually. And again, keep exploring inwardly that which is aware that it sucks, right? That which knows that it sucks. It's really remarkable to me. How is it that we can tell that the difference between great art and good art and bad art? How do we know? Why is Beethoven's Fifth better than some song by Justin Bieber? They're both music, right? They're both. Why? What is it? Why could I sit for a half an hour staring at the Mona Lisa and other paintings? I go, well, that's really nice, and I walk right by. There's a couple others. There's The Lady in Black by Picasso. There are several that like grab me and I cannot pull myself away. What is that quality? And that quality is so subtle and so deep, and yet what am I that can perceive that? I must be even more subtle. So whatever it is that is perceiving the quality that on one hand you say, this sucks, but you're only saying it sucks because there's innate, invisible awareness of a quality that is so much better. It just hasn't taken form yet. But the only way, you can only say that from the position of beauty. Because if you were in the position of suck, you wouldn't be able to say it, right? It would just be, this is what it is, right? You have already stepped into a place of greater freedom and beauty to be able to say that. So now, sink deeper into that. Let that begin to take form. Let that energy begin to flow through your circumstances. And believe me, your life won't suck very much for very long. Mark says, "Love your new digs." Oh, they're not my digs. I'm actually in Las Vegas. I've done a couple of events here, and I'm doing satsang at a friend's house. And yes, they're beautiful digs. Yeah. Normally, I'm in my studio, surrounded by nothing but equipment and green screens and stuff, and a Buddha. This is Mark C., who also donated to me. Thank you, Mark. Hey, GP. Question. I've been using Ho'oponopono as a way to accept anything coming my way. Seems to be a portal access to a greater spaciousness. Curious about your thoughts on this. Yeah, somebody asked about that earlier. You must have joined later, Mark. You're absolutely right. Because the nature of Ho'oponopono is that it brings all the apparently external circumstances back to you. And it's one of the themes that's come up a bunch today, that there isn't anything external to you. There's nothing out there. Right? And Ho'oponopono recognizes that. And the beauty of it, of Ho'oponopono, is because the recognition of that didn't bring about some kind of a non-dual philosophy. It brought about a deep desire to alleviate suffering. And so this guy took on the sufferings of the world, which is the Mahayana path. That's the path of the Bodhisattva. That's the path of a Christ. It isn't enlightenment to be so that I can get my ass out of here and enjoy the bliss. It's enlightenment to save all beings from suffering. A completely different approach to the spiritual path, and that is to the Buddha. That's the highest approach. I am not to even just want enlightenment for myself. Is there? Can you smell the ego in there? Right? Something's a little off, and I think this meat's gone bad, right? Right. But I seek enlightenment for the benefit of all beings, and that's exactly what he's doing. You're taking upon yourself. The Bodhisattva vow is, the suffering beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. And having saved all suffering beings, not one being has been saved. It captures the mystery of the true non-duality, because the saving of other beings is happening right here, because there's no other beings out there to save. And yet, when a suffering appears to you, you have to step into the Bodhisattva and save it within you. And that's how Christ healed, by the way, just to throw that little aside out there. a little gray bar. Oh, 123. Oh, God, let's see. Oh, dear. I do have to acknowledge all that Troll donated to me. Thank you, Troll. Wow, Mark C. and Vess. Oh, God, thank you, Vess. Wow, wonderful. I didn't even know I could do this. I didn't even know this was added into the thing. Oh, well, yeah, great. Okay, it's been 2 hours. I really could do this, and I have, actually. If you didn't get your question answered specifically, you did get it answered. Just look at it like that. Remember, I'm pretty much a one-trick pony. No matter what the question is, I'm always coming back to the same thing. And we need that. As you all know, as the question keeps coming up, how do I maintain that? We need it. We need to be constantly brought back to it until little by little, sometimes very rapidly, in a blink of an eye, sometimes slowly, like you're marinating. You're like cooking a slow roast or something, or a sous vide. But little by little, that sense of that indescribable sense of being who you are will be thoroughly rooted in you. And it's what I was referring to when I was talking about just that sense of being. Because, people say, I want to know who I am. What they think is they're going to find some new, better, improved concept of themselves, a new self-image. And of course, that's great. That's wonderful. I mean, I much prefer people to be more functional than less functional. I want to be more loving than less loving, more intimate than less intimate. But merely an improved view of yourself is still a view of yourself. I want to know the viewer. I want to know the one upon which all of the different potential views are being seen. And so that's where I always want to bring the attention back to. Believe me, as you do that, the other will happen as well. You will become more functional. You will become more competent. You will become more creative. You will become more free and expressive. But that's the wake of the boat. That's not the boat. The boat is to take you to the other side, which is the wisdom that is the mother of all Buddhas. As it is referred to in the Heart Sutra, the Prajnaparamita, literally the mother of all Buddhas, the womb from which all Buddhas have sprung. So the answer you are seeking is also seeking you. Matter of fact, it was the existence of the answer that prompted the question in the first place. They're not two. What you seek is seeking you. What you seek, you actually already are. Everything you are looking for is where you are looking from. So, thank you all for being here with me again on this wonderful Sunday. I love you all. Namaste.